It is in UK interests, and it is the right thing to do, given how many British citizens that we have in the region, to support this defensive action now.
Well, the Prime Minister has decided American forces can use British bases, at least for defensive strikes on Iran. And over 100,000 UK citizens in the Gulf have registered for Foreign Office updates in case they need to be evacuated. The Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, joins us now live. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate.
The Prime Minister has said overnight that those bases can now be used for defensive strikes on Iran. What changed?
So, as you said, we made a deliberate decision not to provide support or to be involved in the US strikes over the weekend. We have taken a view about the importance of diplomatic processes and trying to reach a negotiated agreement with Iran. We share the view of the Iranian threat, including on ensuring that they cannot get nuclear weapons, but we took a different view about the right way forward and the approach to take. But what we've seen over the weekend is now Iranian attacks on partner Gulf countries that were not involved in any of the strikes over the weekend on Iran, including on countries where there are 300,000 British citizens there. And so they've got ballistic missiles and launchers pointing at them in the Gulf, as well as we've seen hundreds of missiles targeted at them and thousands of drones targeted at them over the weekend. So this is about defensive support for those partner Gulf countries, and it is simply, as you said, about the use of our bases, a request from the US. It's not strikes that the UK would be involved in.
So do we now believe that the general mission, the purpose of this and the intention by America is justified, given what you've said that happened over the weekend?
So the thing that we are supporting is a proportionate defensive action, something that France and Germany have taken the same view. There was a joint statement put out by the three countries last night. And so just to give you an example, there are ballistic missile launchers effectively pointed at the Gulf countries, including in southern Iran. So this is about the US being able to take action against those launchers that are pointed at Gulf countries, but it is not about political or economic or civil infrastructure targets or some of those wider targets. It's simply about defensive action for Gulf partner countries.
So our position on the overall mission as pursued by Donald Trump has not changed. Is the fear inside the government about one of the lines that stuck out for us from Keir Starmer's address was about the mistakes of Iraq? Is that the driving fear, that we don't want to make the same mistakes again?
I think, look, obviously that's one of a whole range of calculations. Is we know that there's been history in the past of regional escalation. We have continually said we wanted de-escalation, and we also want ultimately to seek negotiated agreements that can prevent any future use of nuclear weapons and development of nuclear weapons by Iran. We've seen, look, there's a regime that has brutally killed its own people. Tens of thousands of protesters brutally attacked by the Iranian regime. We also know the threat that it poses to its neighbours, and also even threats it has backed on UK streets. So this is a very malign regime. But we do also think that we want a regional stability, and we want to keep pursuing ultimately the negotiated agreements. But we also have to be able to support the kind of defensive action that our Gulf partners are asking for.
Can you understand the American response? Senator Lindsey Graham says he's disappointed in the UK. Quote, "It's sad to see Western democracies lose their passion for justice and a sense of right and wrong the further away from their shores the event occurs."
Well, our British citizens are being directly affected by this. We currently have citizens who are holidaymakers who are unable to get home. We have people who have been on business trips or visits to Dubai, for example, who currently cannot get home because
and I want to come on
the
to talk about
closure of airspace.
I want to come on to talk
we
about
have
them. Can I just ask very specifically on that point?
Just specifically on that point, I think our guiding issue has been about UK interests and about what we think is the right way forward. And our assessment was that it was not in the UK's interests to provide support for the action that took place over the weekend, but it is in UK interests, and it is the right thing to do, given how many British citizens that we have in the region, to support this defensive action now.
And how many have registered so far? How many do you expect could register? And are you satisfied that you're going to be able to get people out quickly?
So the latest figure we have this morning is 102,000 people have registered their presence. We set up a system for British citizens in the region to be able to register, to be able to tell us where they are, so we know where they are and can give people updated information in a situation that it really is rapidly evolving, as you can imagine. There are an estimated 300,000 citizens across these countries that have been affected and targeted. So there may be many more people who we would want to register as well. There will, of course, also be people who have made their permanent homes in those countries, as well as the travellers, holiday makers and so on. At the moment, in most of those countries, the advice is to shelter in place. It's really important that people follow that local advice based on the circumstances on the ground at a time when, of course, there have been these drone and missile strikes. And at the moment, we have our embassies working immensely hard in the region, and also we are sending out rapid deployment teams to the region as well. And that's to be able to work with the travel industry, with the airlines, to work with the countries in the region as well about what the options are to ensure that people can safely return home.
So people should shelter in place, as you say right now, and register if they haven't already, and they will get further instruction from the Foreign Office when the time is right. Can I ask you, there has been an attack on RAF Akrotiri overnight. What's the status of that attack? What was targeted? Was anybody injured? And is the base still usable? Is the US able to use it?
So the base is still operating. The Ministry of Defence have confirmed this morning this was an unmanned drone attack. There have not been casualties, and the base is still operating. But as a precautionary measure, we are moving some of the families from the base to other parts of Cyprus. I've also spoken to the Cypriot Foreign Minister. We're working closely with them as well.
And can the US use that base? Are they entitled to use that base?
So that is not one that they have asked to be able to use. So it is not one that we have given them permission to use as part of this.
And I have two quick questions for you before you have to go. Will we now prescribe the IRGC?
So the IRGC is a deeply damaging organisation, and as you'll know, as part of the work that I did as Home Secretary, we commissioned a report into the state-backed organisations that can pose a threat on UK streets. The advice that we were given by Jonathan Paul, who's the counter-terrorism reviewer, was that the legislation needs to change. The legislation we've got on prescribing is effectively designed around terrorist organisations rather than state-backed organisations. So we are proposing to change the legislation to make it possible to prescribe and restrict state-backed organisations. But bear in mind, we do also have other very intensive restrictions on any operation by the IRGC or other Iran-linked organisation in the UK.
I know you have to leave, so a yes or no. Have we expelled Iranian diplomats from the UK?
We are continuing to take all possible action, both diplomatic and now this ensuring that we can work with our partners in the Gulf. What I would also say, though, is we do think that the diplomatic processes are important, and we will continue to pursue those.
Yvette Cooper, thank you very much for joining us, Foreign
Kate.
Secretary.
So the line she's trying to tread there, a malign regime, evil guy, the Ayatollah. But at the point at which the attack was lodged by the US, it wasn't felt to be in British interest to support it. Mm-hmm. Presumably because it's never in British interest to act, certainly by their own estimation, act against international law. Is that what it boils down to? Because it's clearly it's clearly in Britain's interest to support America, and indeed that has been the foreign policy for the last 18 months. Whatever Trump says, we agree with.
But I also think it's interesting that Yvette Cooper did say, and so did Keir Starmer, that they as a government and we as a country need to learn the lessons of the past. And Keir Starmer mentioned specifically Iraq. So I mean, there is clearly something in mind there when they talk about this conflict. The use of US bases, though, for defensive purposes. And Yvette Cooper did give some parameters there for the Trump administration. The question will be whether or not the UK can have full oversight and understanding of those military operations to know that it falls within those very strict parameters.
Yeah, because you're effectively saying these planes can take off, and who knows and who knows what they're going to do when they get there. And once I think you're in a kind of conflict like this, it's very hard to have sort of battlefield assessment of precisely what's going on. And someone asked the question, they have not left the name, which I think is the critical one, which you really put to Yvette Cooper. Was it bad strategy not to assist the US, especially after the attacks on places like Cyprus that's not had any involvement? Wasn't that obvious before it happened, that once this starts, we're going to have assets in the area that will require defence, at which point we're going to be working with the US anyway?